Hello and welcome to the ScatterVolt channel, and today we're going to be covering the best graphics cards you can buy for the month of September. And I'm looking for one thing, and that is more or less Black Friday in September/October. One thing I've noticed in the graphics card market, especially looking at it after the past 2 years, is that for some reason, retailers really love to discount their graphics cards a lot in October and September and never tell anybody about it. But then they make a big deal about it in November, but they don't discount them as hard as they did in October and September. It's a really weird phenomenon. I've been checking it out since 2022, and I think at least in regards to Radeon, they're actually getting some harder discounts than they've ever seen since Cyber Monday, Black Friday, and even the most recent Amazon Prime Day. So we'll be looking into all of that and more, which I should say, all the graphics cards we'll be checking out in this video will be linked in the description below. And if you would like to build a PC centered around one of these graphics cards, then I have this really cool website called pcbuilds.gg where you can check out my recommended PC builds if you want to build something custom centered around the best bang for your buck graphics cards and staying away from the bad ones. So what is the best graphics card to buy right now under $100? Well, I can't tell you that, because what you got to do is you got to go onto facebookmarketplace.com or whatever used retailer you like to use. eBay, Mercari, Java.gg is a really good one, and search up graphics cards for below $100 and buy something that has a decent amount of VRAM. So ideally 8 gigabytes. Or I'd say 6 is fine as well for below $100, because ain't no way you're getting anything good brand new for below $100. Those really cheap old AliExpress RX 500 GPUs for below $100 are not worth it brand new. Just get it used. I mean, heck, I'm selling some right now on my website for below $100. But now what about from $100 to $300 brand new? So the mainstream segment, what a lot of you guys are looking at if you're watching this video, I'll say which ones to absolutely avoid first. I'd say this. Nvidia is not worth looking into whatsoever for a gaming PC until you reach $500 for their graphics cards. Anything below $500 is either really lackluster, has pretty poor hardware for the money, or in some cases, straight up slow and is a scam. And one of those is the RTX 3050. There's only one use case scenario that makes this GPU tolerable, and that is, say, if you have an old Dell Optiplex or old pre-built PC that is a full-size mid-tower and there's an older graphics card in there and you want to swap it out for something new, but you don't know the power specifications of the power supply in that pre-built, and you don't really know what kind of graphics card would be compatible to swap out the older one in that pre-built with a newer one. Well, that is the one case where the 3050 6 gigabyte makes sense, because if you look at this graphics card, there is no power connector because it gets all of its power from the motherboard. But just to put this in perspective, history lesson. This right here is a GTX 1660 Super. This released back in 2019 for an MSRP of $230. It has been 5 years. And wouldn't you believe it, the brand new 3050 6 gigabyte that just released is the same in terms of performance of a 5-year-old GTX 1660 Super. We're making great strides here, aren't we? Yeah, don't get the 3050, it's slow. What isn't slow for below $300 that I would recommend, this guy right here. RX 6650 XT. For some reason, AMD is still making these, which in my opinion is hurting the sales of their RX 7600, which we'll cover later, because this on Amazon right now retails for about $220 brand new, and it's essentially an RX 7600 without the AV1 codec. So unless you are very particular about game streaming and game recording with that next generation codec to get even smaller file sizes after recording or streaming something, and you don't care about that, this is, like I said, essentially an RX 7600 for about $30 less, and I rate it really well. And at about $220, its 8 gigabyte VRAM capacity is completely acceptable for a brand new graphics card. In fact, that is about how much you should spend for a graphics card brand new with that amount of VRAM, because you're probably targeting towards 1080p gaming, and in that case, the 6650 XT ticks all the boxes. It's got, for below $300, the most FPS per $200 out of this entire list. And even if you're to throw on ray tracing with this graphics card, yes, it wouldn't be that great, but certainly way faster than that RTX 3050 that I just showed you. Even that card with ray tracing would probably still be slower than this one with ray tracing, despite being an AMD card. But I think a lot of you guys are also gonna ask about the RX 6600, the little brother to the 6650 XT, and the answer for this one is gonna be a no, because for about $20 more than this, you can get this, which is a lot faster. So although the 6600 had its time in place 2 years ago, it's not as strong as a value nowadays, and you can just get a way better graphics card in the 6650 XT for, like I said, only about $20 more. Now, what do we got from Intel for below $200 or below $300? Well, you get the Intel ARC A770. I'm sorry, but for gaming, this is a no. I know it's got 16 gigabytes of VRAM, but if you look at benchmarks between this and the Intel ARC A750, that costs about $70 less. Even the A750 is able to keep up with the A770 despite having half the VRAM, and that's just because the A770 only really has 8 more gigs of VRAM over the A750. But that said, it's not fast enough to utilize that extra memory that it has in the first place. So it's as cool of a card as it is, it doesn't make sense for gaming. The A770 only makes sense if you're a content creator looking for a budget value video editing graphics card, because don't forget, this has the Intel QuickSync codec, which is very much goated for video editing. And at the end of the day, like I just said, it has 16 gigabytes of VRAM, and the more VRAM you have for video editing, the better. But now let's talk about the A750. Well, right now you can get this for about $200. It's okay. I mean, in terms of raw performance, this just edges out the RX 6600 from Radeon for the same price. But in turn, you are gonna be having a graphics card that consumes way more power than that 6600. If you live in a country or an area of the world that has high prices for energy, then this may not be for you. And in that case, just get the 6650 XT for only $20 more. But nonetheless, the A750 is okay, but I know this graphics card is gonna dip down to $180 later this year. So don't get this for $200, only get it if it's $180 US. And the last one to round out the Intel bunch is the A580. I'm gonna say no, because I know for a fact the A750 is gonna go on a discount sometime soon, and for only about $10 to $20 more than this, which right now this is retailing for about $170. I mean, if you wanted an Intel graphics card, just get the A750. It's not that much more, it will be faster, and this is only really worth it if it gets a really good discount. Like if it's 160 USD, that is good, but if it's 170 or 180, nah. But wait, I think there's a few more graphics cards we gotta cover real quick. Like another graphics card from Radeon in this price range, the RX 7600, which at the moment I do not recommend because at its current listing price of $250, the cheaper yet same equivalent performance RX 6650 XT makes more sense for less, especially since it's a Radeon card, and most people who are looking into Radeon graphics cards mostly care about performance per dollar, and objectively between the two graphics cards, the 6650 XT has more FPS per dollar than this. The RX 7600 is only worth it if it gets down to about $230, which you've seen before back in Amazon Prime Day. So for the month of September, I can't see it happening, but maybe in October, we could see the 7600 get a really nice discount that it deserves. Oh, and you know what? This is gonna be one of my favorite sections of the video. The 3060 is ending production, and for a good reason. It's slow. Goodbye 3060. And what do they do to celebrate that? The 4060 is still at a stagnant $300 to $285. This graphics card should really be selling for like $250. If the 4060 were $250, I would be plugging it so hard in these videos, but it's not. It's got 8 gigabytes of VRAM for a fairly expensive price, which I don't like anymore. You need a graphics card with at least 12 gigabytes of VRAM if you're spending $300. So the 4060 is a no, even if it has DLSS 3.0, which was a forte for this graphics card when it first came out, but AMD is catching up with their version of it called FSR 3.1, 3.2, whichever version we're on, and that is compatible across all graphics card brands and models. Even the 3060 that I just pointed out can utilize FSR 3.1, and in some cases, it beats the 4060 with AMD FSR versus this with just DLSS 3.0 on the same game at the same resolution, because at the end of the day, this has 8 gigabytes of VRAM, and the 3060, although it's still slow, has 12. I can't stress how important VRAM is nowadays, and that is why the 4060 it's not gonna get a good recommendation for me for the month of September. Now from $300 to $500, we actually get some pretty interesting movement for certain graphics cards. And my favorite graphics card in this entire price bracket has gone even cheaper in price than what it was during Prime Day this year and Black Friday and Cyber Monday, which I'm happy to report. We'll get to that. But what I'm not happy to report is, once again, as usual, the RTX 4060 Ti 8GB should be avoided in this price range for all the same reasons that I just listed out for the 4060 with having 8GB of VRAM, but it's even more expensive. And in some cases, it is in fact slower than the previous generation RTX 3060 Ti it was meant to supersede. Now, what should you buy instead for the price of an RTX 4060 Ti? Well, for about $360, still on Amazon and Newegg, you can pick up an RX 6800 with 16 gigabytes of VRAM. And in terms of relative performance, this well outperforms an RTX 3070. And the 4060 Ti that I just pointed out, in some cases loses to the 3060 Ti, a lower tier graphics card versus this. And that isn't even counting in games that exceed the 8GB VRAM buffer of the 3070, which in those cases, the 6800 absolutely glasses that graphics card, or for any matter, any 8GB VRAM graphics card in its price range. This is an S tier graphics card as per my graphics card tier list video I released earlier this year, and I do not need to say anything more about it. It is a really excellent blend of hardware, features, power draw, and overall performance per dollar. And from Radeon, this generation of graphics cards, RX 6000, is aging very well because it's eating into the sales of RX 7000, because that is how good these RX 6000 cards were that we didn't fully appreciate at launch, but have aged beautifully well since then. So yet again, although this is older, I still really recommend the RX 6800 for any gamer looking at no compromises 1440p gaming without overspending for a graphics card. But if you couldn't spend that much, then I will like to give a shout out to the RX 6750 XT. If you have an extra $60 to spend, absolutely get the 6800, because having 4 additional gigabytes of VRAM is very enticing at this price range, but this still isn't a slouch either. If you have exactly $300 to spend, then yeah, 6750 XT. Although I like to point out, finally, on Newegg, I'm not seeing any brand new 6750 XT or 6700 XT graphics cards from Radeon. You can only get them brand new on Amazon. So these are on the way out. But if I had my choice, I would really get the 6800 over this for $60 more. Now, I would like to report some good news on the RX 7700 XT, because this can be found right now on Amazon for about $385, only $15 more than the 6800, and all things considered, that is actually quite decent of a discount, especially at this time of the year, because I think the lowest I ever saw this graphics card was about $390 on Prime Day. So this might be an all-time low price according to Amazon, but you know, it's it's still slower than this by a hair, and this at the end of the day has 4 gigabytes more of VRAM. So once again, if you want to go with the older graphics card, the only thing you're really losing out on is the AV1 codec, which I have a full video detailing that from a previous graphics card comparison video. So if you care about content creation, streaming, and reducing the file sizes on your game recordings, then the 7700 XT is very nice to have. Otherwise, if you are just planning to game and game, 6800, it's got more raw beef, it's got more hardware, I really like it, and it costs less. So the 7700 XT, it gets a meh for me right now. I really want to see it go on an even harder discount, but I would still take that graphics card any day over the RTX 4060 Ti 16GB. Now you may be thinking, wait, this has 16 gigabytes of VRAM. Doesn't that alleviate the issue you were just talking about with having not enough VRAM in these graphics cards? Well, on one hand, yes, but on the other hand, one thing to keep in mind is that the 4060 Ti 16GB has the same small 128-bit memory bus as the entry-level 4060 Ti and the entry-level 4060, and even the same entry-level graphics cards from Radeon that cost even less than that, like the 6600 and 7600. For a near $400 graphics card, it has still that small 128-bit memory bus, so although you may have more VRAM, it's not the real deal. Not like the 6800 with a 256-bit memory bus. And still, this graphics card is slow for above $400. It's still slow. Oh, and I forgot this graphics card, but what about the 7600 XT? Because this retails for just above $300. And I mean, my answer to that is the 6750 XT, by definition, is a better value. And although it may have 4 gigabytes less of VRAM, and I know I just had that conversation about how the 4060 Ti 16 gigabyte doesn't have the full memory bus of like a RX 6800, same applies to this. This also has 16 gigabytes of VRAM, but it also has that same small 128-bit memory bus. But the difference is, versus the 4060 Ti costing above $400, this can be had for just about $300, so it's not the worst. But by AMD's high-end standards, the 6750 XT is a better buy for the same price of this. If this can be found for below $300, I will make a PC build guide with it. Absolutely no questions asked, because it'll get my seal of approval. But right now at about $300, $310, Radeon has better graphics cards than this for the same price. But here was what I was not expecting. The 7800 XT, one of AMD's best graphics cards right now, is at an all-time low price on Amazon. $460, I think. Or $470, let me double check. Oh, yeah. For $470 from XFX, you can get a Speedster Quick 319 7800 XT for $470. Now there were a few 7800 XTs on Amazon for $450 on Prime Day, but those went out immediately. But for $470 right now, that is the best average price I've seen for this graphics card. If you want one of AMD's best graphics cards that has, once again, an excellent combination of performance, hardware, and features, the 7800 XT is it. And I made a build guide with it 2 months ago for $1,200, and I kind of just straight up said in that video, I really don't see how you need anything faster than this. If you plan on playing at 1440p and you're gonna invest in one of those high refresh rate 1440p monitors that go up to like 240 hertz, in Counter-Strike 2, in Fortnite, and any high frame rate first person shooter game, it's gonna get 240 FPS at 1440p. You don't need to stress out about it. I mean, really, this is as extreme as I'd recommend for any PC gamer. Those higher end graphics cards are meant for 4K. And who has a 4K monitor? Most of y'all are rocking either 1080p or 1440p. So once again, what an excellent price for the RX 7800 XT. I can't recommend this graphics card enough. It is an S tier graphics card on my GPU tier list. Let's move on. Okay, what about from $500 to $700? Well, don't get the 4070. There's a reason why it got replaced, which let's talk about that replacement. That is none other than the RTX 4070 Super. The 4070, I don't know, it's retailing for kind of a stupid price in my opinion, because the 4070 Super is way better of a graphics card for like $40 more. Yeah, the 4070, 530 bucks. Why get that when the 4070 can be had for almost $50 more? I mean, guys, this is one of the few Nvidia graphics cards I do recommend. I'd say this is more for gamers who do want to dabble into ray tracing and DLSS 3.0, but don't want to spend $1,000 on an Nvidia graphics card. In terms of the RTX 4070 Super, on paper, this does deliver the most FPS per dollar out of their entire lineup, which is saying something because that just goes to show how bad of a value their lower end RTX 4000 graphics cards are. But that does not apply whatsoever for the 4070 Super. A lot of you guys have gotten it who wanted to get an Nvidia graphics card, but wanted something that wasn't gonna be poor hardware for the money. And fortunately, the 4070 Super is anything but that. This is a great 1440p ray tracing graphics card that costs below $600. But if you didn't care a whole lot about ray tracing and you wanted to save money and get an additional 4 gigabytes of VRAM, then the RX 7900 GRE is for you. This is retailing for about $530. That's not bad. Although in terms of value, I think that 7800 XT retailing for about $470 is by definition a better value than this. The 7900 GRE is no slouch either. It is a cut down version of the 7900 XT, which costs just below $700, and you can pick this up for $530. Now, I'm still gonna stick to my morals. I really don't think you need anything crazier than a 7800 XT for a graphics card, but if you wanted that extra little bit of oomph in your GPU at 1440p gaming, as I found out in my most recent $1,500 PC build guide, this is fine because you're still not really overspending, in my opinion, for a graphics card that's going to be aimed towards 1440p gaming. Just treat this as a faster 7800 XT that you're not really losing much if you spend up more for it. But again, at this price range, I really don't see how you need anything faster than this. If you're playing at 1440p with a 240 hertz monitor, this is gonna be enough. A 4070 Super is gonna be enough. I really don't see how you need more than this. Save your money. Save up for Christmas presents for other people, you know? Do that instead. Which again, makes this graphics card really interesting. The 7900 XT, because for some reason, AMD may be looking at the sales for the 7900 XT, and they may be like, man, maybe putting it at an MSRP at $900 at launch wasn't a smart idea, because you can get this for $680. That is a $220 discount from the time this graphics card launched. This thing should have retailed for $750 or heck, $700. And the day one reviews for the 7900 XT would have been critically acclaimed for all the right reasons. But again, as good in my opinion as AMD are at making graphics cards that are decent value for the money, their pricing strategies at launch are abysmal. Come on guys. Because this graphics card has 20 gigabytes of VRAM, it is the entry-level 4K gaming graphics card if you wanted to do 4K gaming without spending $1,000, and it can really do it all. Now I will say, when you approach this price category of about $700 for a graphics card, you probably want to do ray tracing. Who doesn't? And in that case, while the 7900 XT is definitely more than enough for light ray tracing, when it comes to heavier ray tracing, or games that have higher graphical settings for ray tracing, something like Cyberpunk or Star Wars Outlaws, versus say something regular like, I don't know, enabling ray tracing on Fortnite, which doesn't make sense, but it's there, then you might want an Nvidia graphics card, which we'll be covering next up, which is, unsurprisingly, the 4070 Ti Super. The more that I cover this graphics card, the more that I regret putting it in B tier in my GPU tier list video, because in my opinion, I mean, if we give AMD a lot of credit for their 7800 XT, 6800, and RX 7900 GRE for having excellent hardware for the money, I kind of want to say the same will apply to the RTX 4070 Ti Super, because this has 16 gigabytes of VRAM. It is their cheapest graphics card that has that really nice amount of VRAM. And better yet, unlike the 4080 Super, which still has some pricing consistency issues for its MSRP, this doesn't. You can regularly find the RTX 4070 Ti Super for below its MSRP at about right now $790, which is okay, although I've seen this dip to as low as $770. So if you want to get a 4070 Ti Super, wait for next month, because things could get spicy for this graphics card. And I mean, as much as I want to praise the 4070 Super for having the most FPS per dollar, this, in terms of hardware, I think beats it out for the money, just because it has a little bit more VRAM. Because after all, the original 4070 Ti, this one right here, its only real issue, and it was a big one, is that it came with 12 gigabytes of VRAM. That was its main issue. And Nvidia was like, all right, 16 then. And now it makes so much more sense. It is much more future-proof for 4K gaming, and it's a lot better for ray tracing as well, because you need more VRAM for ray tracing. So I like this graphics card. You can get it right now, and I wouldn't bug you about it. But again, the 4070 Ti Super can be had for a lower price. So if you wanted to get one, wait 1 month and we'll see what we get in October. But what you're welcome to get right now, because I don't know why, like AMD, they're like, screw it, September, whatever, Black Friday deals now. You can get a 7900 XTX for below $900. That's like Prime Day level deals. And it's September. AMD, are you guys sure you're making enough profit margins here? So if all you really cared about was absolute performance per dollar and you didn't care too much about ray tracing, this is objectively the best graphics card you can get. Even if you did want to dabble into ray tracing a little bit, that's still going to be more than doable on this graphics card, simply because the 7900 XTX has so much hardware for the money. It's unfair. It's unfair versus Nvidia. Because for about $100 more than the 4070 Ti Super, you get even more VRAM than that and a much faster graphics card that can go toe-to-toe with the ludicrously expensive RTX 4090. This is a unicorn card, and I don't know if we'll see one of these from AMD again, because there's rumors out there that their next lineup of graphics cards will not be covering the super high-end GPU market, just the mid-range to low-end. So this could be the last hurrah we see from AMD for a high-end graphics card that is just really damn good for its price. So I'd say get this while it's here. And will it go even lower in price? I think I'll buy maybe a little bit in October, but not by a lot. I think Black Friday and Cyber Monday, we're gonna see a lot of deals for the graphics cards that were covered earlier in this video that were a lot less expensive, because those ones I assume you can't get too hard in terms of price discounts, because I assume AMD, Nvidia, and Intel still need to make a profit margin with those cards. So the 7900 XTX right now, my opinion, is a safe buy. Now, what is not quite a safe buy in my opinion right now, because I know what's coming up in the pipeline next for Nvidia, that is the RTX 4080 Super, because there's rumors that they're cooking up the new 5090 and 5080, but those won't be announced until next year. But man, wouldn't it be nice if the 4080 Super got like a really good discount this month or next month? Well, right now it's not showing up for the month of September because you can get this for about its MSRP of $1,000 still. But during Black Friday and Cyber Monday, if this graphics card gets even close to $900, that's gonna be a really good time to buy a 4080 Super, because who knows how expensive Nvidia is going to make the next 5090, 5080, or even 5070 be. They could be even more, and we could be thankful that at least these Super Series cards, which were much needed updates from Nvidia, did get some nice discounts. So the 4080 Super, I still rate it. If you are not in a hurry to buy it, I would wait, because there could be some really good discounts for this graphics card, or for even just thinking about it but not actually wanting to spring up on it. Let's wait and see what Nvidia announces at CES next year in January. So for a high-end card, I put a little bit of weight on the 4080 Super. Wait till November, and if you don't like the deals and you want to wait till the next 5090 or 5080, then wait another 2 months until January. And that is all we have to cover for GPUs for the month of September. And like I said, all of them will be linked in the description below, along with my garage sale and my PCBuilds.gg website. And with all of that said, thank you so much for watching. And this is the ScatterVolt channel, signing out.